The class begins. In a galaxy far from Earth, on a vibrant planet called Xenox, a classroom buzzed with excitement and nervousness. This was no ordinary class. It was a special lesson on first aid. The room was filled with alien students of many shapes and colors. There were tall, blue beings with long limbs, short, green creatures with wide eyes, and even fluffy, orange aliens that resembled walking clouds. Each student had their own unique way of expressing curiosity, but they all shared one thing in common. They were anxious about their new human teacher. The alien students had heard stories about humans. Some said they were fierce and wild, while others claimed they had strange customs. Today, they would meet a real human. A tall figure stood at the front of the class, preparing for his lesson. His name was John, and he was excited but nervous too. He had never taught aliens before. As John looked at the classroom, he noticed the different alien faces staring back at him. Some were wide-eyed with fear, while others wore expressions of doubt. He took a deep breath and decided to start his lesson with a smile. "Hello, everyone. I'm John, and today we're going to learn about first aid." The classroom fell silent. The aliens looked at each other, unsure of what to expect. A tall blue alien raised a hand and asked, "What is first aid?" John smiled. "First aid is how we help someone who is hurt or sick before more help arrives. It's important to know how to do this, especially in emergencies." He paused for a moment, looking around the room. "And don't worry, I promise it will be interesting." The fluffy orange alien at the back giggled, making a noise that sounded like a soft puff. "Interesting. How can healing someone be fun?" John chuckled. "Well, let me show you. First, I'll need a volunteer." The students exchanged glances, but no one stepped forward. After a moment of hesitation, a brave little green alien with big eyes slowly raised a hand. "I'll help." "Great. What's your name?" John asked. "I'm Zog," the green alien replied, bouncing on its tiny feet. "Okay, Zog, come on up," John called. Zog nervously approached the front, and the other students watched with wide eyes. "Today, we'll start with something simple," John said, showing Zog a bandage. "This is a bandage. It helps to cover wounds and keep them clean." As John explained the use of bandages, he demonstrated how to wrap one around Zog's arm, making sure to be gentle. Zog giggled when John pretended to accidentally tickle him while wrapping the bandage. The other students began to laugh too, the tension in the room starting to ease. "Now, who knows what to do if someone is bleeding?" John asked, looking around the room. The aliens looked puzzled. A tall blue alien finally spoke up. "Bleeding? What does that mean?" "Good question," John replied. "Bleeding is when blood comes out of a body. It can happen if someone gets hurt." He paused for effect. "But don't worry. We can help them." John went on to explain the steps for stopping bleeding, emphasizing the importance of staying calm. "First, you put pressure on the wound," he said, demonstrating with Zog. "If the bleeding doesn't stop, you need to keep applying pressure until help arrives." "Help? Who helps?" asked a fluffy orange alien, tilting its head in confusion. "Great question. Help can be anyone. A doctor, a friend, or even a fellow student," John explained. "But sometimes you need to help right away. That's why we learn first aid." The students seemed to understand more as John spoke. He shared funny stories about his own experiences with injuries and how he had helped his friends. As he talked, the students relaxed even more, their laughter filling the room. Then John had an idea. "Let's practice. I'll need a couple more volunteers." Several hands shot up. The blue alien, Zog, and a small pink creature named Yip came to the front. John handed them bandages and showed them how to wrap them around imaginary wounds on each other. At first, Zog and Yip wrapped the bandages in strange ways. One bandage was too tight, making Zog squeak. Another was loose and fell off. The class erupted in laughter. "Good effort. It's all about practice," John encouraged, his eyes sparkling with joy. First aid can be fun. Just remember to be gentle. As the practice continued, John felt a sense of pride. The aliens were laughing and enjoying themselves while learning. They were beginning to trust him, and he could see their interest growing. "Okay, everyone, let's take a break," John announced after an hour. The aliens cheered, excited to discuss what they had learned. Adventure. While they took a break, John noticed a group of students whispering and pointing at him. He felt a bit nervous again, unsure of what they were saying. But then, Zog approached him with a bright smile. "You're really cool, John. We want to learn more." John beamed with happiness. "Thank you, Zog. I'm glad you're enjoying the class. We have so much more to learn together." As the break ended, John felt hopeful. He knew that by sharing his knowledge, he could help bridge the gap between humans and aliens. Little did he know, the real lessons were just beginning, and the aliens would be shocked at the things he had in store for them. In that moment, the alien students felt a newfound excitement. They were ready to discover the world of human first aid, and John was eager to lead them on this unexpected challenges. The break was over, and the alien students settled back into their seats, chattering excitedly about what they had learned. John looked at the eager faces before him and felt a wave of motivation. Today, he wanted to teach them something a little more complicated: how to handle an emergency. "All right, everyone, let's get back to it," John said, clapping his hands to grab their attention. "Today, we'll learn how to help someone who is unconscious." The room grew quiet as the students leaned in, intrigued. Zog, who had become John's enthusiastic helper, raised a hand. "What does unconscious mean?" "Great question, Zog," John replied. "Unconscious means that a person is not awake and cannot respond. They might need help right away." John explained the signs of someone being unconscious, using clear examples and demonstrations. If someone is not breathing, you need to act fast. First, you call for help. He mimed calling for assistance, and the students giggled, mimicking him. Then, John continued, you check if they are breathing. If they aren't, you have to perform CPR. He noticed some worried faces in the class. But don't worry, I'll show you how to do it. He walked them through the steps of CPR, using a dummy he had brought along for practice. You start by putting your hands in the middle of their chest, he instructed, demonstrating the motion. Then you press down hard and fast. Zog and Yip watched closely, their wide eyes filled with curiosity. What happens if you press too hard? Zog asked. Good question. If you press too hard, you might hurt them. But if you don't press hard enough, it won't help, John explained. You have to find a balance, and always check for breathing. He began the practice session, encouraging each student to try out CPR on the dummy. The room buzzed with laughter and chatter as the aliens took turns. Some struggled with the technique, pressing too softly, while others pressed too hard, making the dummy squeak. Remember, everyone, hard and fast. John cheered them on, feeling the room fill with energy. You're doing great. However, as the practice continued, things took an unexpected turn. A sudden alarm blared through the classroom, causing everyone to jump. The lights flickered, and the sound of chaos echoed in the halls outside. What is that noise? A small purple alien gasped, clinging to its seat. John felt a rush of adrenaline. Stay calm, everyone. Let me check what's happening. He stepped out of the classroom, leaving the students whispering nervously behind him. As he walked down the hallway, he saw other teachers rushing past him, their faces filled with concern. He turned a corner and spotted an alien teacher frantically waving his arms. There's been an accident in the lab. We need help. John's heart raced. He couldn't just stand by. He had to act. He turned back to the classroom. Everyone, listen up. We have a situation. I need your help. The students looked at him with a mix of fear and determination. What can we do? Zog asked, stepping forward. First, we need to stay calm. Then we need to assist with first aid, John said, his voice steady. Who here remembers what to do when someone is injured? The students quickly nodded, recalling the lessons from earlier. We check for breathing, Yip shouted. Right. And then we apply pressure to any wounds. Another alien chimed in. Exactly. Now, let's move quickly, John directed, leading the way back to the lab. The group followed him, their nerves slowly turning into excitement. As they entered the lab, they saw a commotion. An alien scientist lay on the floor, unconscious, surrounded by worried colleagues. John rushed to the scene, and the students followed closely behind. Clear the area. We need space, John commanded, surprising himself with his authority. The crowd parted, giving him room to work. He knelt beside the unconscious scientist, checking for breathing. Is anyone trained in first aid? He called out. Several aliens stepped forward, but they looked uncertain. I'll take charge, John said firmly. Zog, can you help me check for injuries? Yes, Zog replied eagerly, moving closer. Good. Now, everyone else, we need you to stay calm and give us space to work, John instructed. The students nodded, understanding their roles in this emergency. As Zog and John checked for wounds, they found a cut on the scientist's arm. We need to apply pressure here, John said, demonstrating as he pressed a cloth against the wound. Zog, can you hold it steady while I check for breathing? Zog nodded, carefully applying pressure. The other students watched, their eyes wide with admiration. They had never seen a human in action before, and John's calmness inspired them. Remember what I taught you. We need to call for help, John shouted, looking around for anyone who could assist. One of the students quickly pulled out a communication device, alerting the medical team. Help is on the way, the student announced. Good job, John encouraged, turning back to the scientist. Now we wait. Stay strong. The minutes felt like hours, but John kept reassuring everyone. You're all doing great. This is how first aid works. It's about teamwork and staying calm. Finally, the medical team arrived, quickly assessing the situation. John stepped back, proud of how his students had reacted. They had stayed focused and calm, just as he had taught them. As the team took over, John looked around at his students. They were no longer the scared aliens he had first met. They were confident, ready to help, and eager to learn more. In that moment, John realized the true power of knowledge. First aid wasn't just about healing. It was about unity and courage in the face of danger. The classroom, once filled with uncertainty, had transformed into a place of growth and resilience. Little did they know, this experience would change their perception of humans forever. The lesson of courage. The medical team quickly took charge, and John watched as they expertly assessed the unconscious scientist. He felt proud of how his students had risen to the occasion. They were learning not just about first aid, but also about courage in moments of crisis. Once the chaos subsided, John gathered the students outside the lab. The adrenaline still buzzed through the air, and everyone's faces were a mix of concern and excitement. You all did an amazing job, he exclaimed, clapping his hands to regain their attention. You kept calm and worked together, just like I taught you. Zog, still buzzing with energy, raised his hand. What happens now? Will the scientist be okay? John nodded, a reassuring smile on his face. Yes, I believe so. The medical team is very skilled. They'll take care of him. But this is a good reminder of why learning first aid is important. You never know when someone might need help. The students looked at each other, their expressions turning serious. They understood now that their skills could make a real difference in someone's life. Let's continue our lesson for today, John said, leading them back to the classroom. We'll practice more advanced first aid techniques. I want you all to feel confident in your abilities. As they settled back into their seats, John felt a surge of determination. He wanted to make this class not just informative, but also inspiring. Today, we will learn how to help someone who is bleeding heavily. This is a critical skill that could save lives. He explained the steps carefully. First, you need to apply pressure to the wound. If that doesn't work, you can elevate the injured area. And if the bleeding doesn't stop, you might have to use a tourniquet. Zog raised his hand again, looking curious. What is a tourniquet? Great question. A tourniquet is a device used to stop bleeding by applying pressure to a limb. But it should only be used as a last resort, John clarified. He wanted to emphasize the importance of using this technique responsibly. He set up another demonstration with the dummy, showing the students how to apply a tourniquet properly. Remember, it should be tight but not so tight that it cuts off all circulation. You'll want to keep an eye on the patient as you do this. As he demonstrated, he encouraged the students to practice on the dummy again. Zog and Yip were eager to try. They took turns applying pressure and wrapping the tourniquet around the dummy's arm, their faces focused and serious. You guys are doing fantastic, John encouraged, moving around the room to assist them. It's important to keep practicing. The more comfortable you are with these techniques, the better you'll perform in a real situation. After some time, John noticed a group of students whispering in the corner. He approached them, curious about what they were discussing. What's going on over here? Yip looked up, a little nervous. We were talking about what happened in the lab. It was scary, but we felt like we could do something. That's exactly right, John said, his voice filled with pride. You all showed courage in that situation. It's important to remember that you have the power to help others, even when things get tough. The students exchanged glances, their confidence growing. They were beginning to understand that they were capable of much more than they had realized. All right, let's do a role-playing exercise, John suggested. I want you all to practice being calm and decisive. I'll simulate an emergency, and you'll have to respond as if it were real. Excited chatter filled the room as the students prepared for the exercise. They were eager to test their skills and show what they had learned. John created different scenarios, and the students quickly jumped into action. They took turns responding to simulated injuries, applying bandages, and checking for breathing. Each time, they grew more confident in their abilities. As the session continued, John noticed a shift in the classroom's atmosphere. The students, once hesitant and unsure, now exuded energy and determination. They were not just learning. They were growing into confident first responders. Finally, after the last scenario, John gathered them for a discussion. You all did an incredible job today. I'm impressed by how much you've learned and how quickly you've adapted. Zog raised his hand once more, his expression serious. But what if we face something we've never seen before? What if it's really scary? John took a moment to think, wanting to address Zog's concern thoughtfully. It's natural to feel scared in an emergency. But remember, fear is not a weakness. It's a feeling that tells us we need to be careful. What matters is how we respond to that fear. You can lean on each other and rely on the skills you've learned. The students nodded, absorbing his words. They realized that courage didn't mean the absence of fear. It meant acting despite it. As the class wrapped up, John felt a sense of fulfillment. They were no longer just a group of alien students learning about first aid. They were becoming a team, united by a common goal, to help others when it mattered most. With the day coming to an end, John looked at his students, now filled with a sense of purpose. Remember, the skills you learn here can make a difference in the world. Keep practicing and stay curious. Together, you can be a force for good. As they left the classroom, John couldn't help but smile. He knew that today had been a turning point for them. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together, a test of skills. The next day, the classroom buzzed with excitement. The alien students chatted animatedly, their eyes bright with anticipation. John stood at the front, smiling at their energy. Today, we're going to put your skills to the test. We have a surprise drill planned. A wave of murmurs washed over the room. Zog leaned forward, eyes wide. What kind of drill? John chuckled, feeling the thrill in the air. You'll have to wait and see. But it's a chance for you to show what you've learned. Remember, this is all about teamwork and communication. The students exchanged glances, their nerves palpable. They had practiced diligently, but this was different. This was real. John could see the determination on their faces. "Let's get ready," he said, clapping his hands. "Head to the training area outside." The students quickly lined up, and John led the way. The sun shone brightly as they stepped outside. The training area was a large open space filled with different stations, each simulating a potential emergency scenario. John gathered them around. "Here's how it will work. You will rotate through different stations where you will face various challenges. I'll be observing and providing feedback. Remember to apply everything you've learned." As they broke into small groups, John felt a sense of pride. These students had come so far since the first class, and now they were ready for this challenge. Zog, Yip, and a few other students headed to the first station, where a dummy lay on the ground with a simulated injury. "Okay, we need to check for breathing first," Yip suggested. Zog nodded, taking charge. "I'll look for signs. You two get ready to apply pressure if needed." They worked together, showing confidence as they checked the dummy's airways. John watched from a distance, noting how well they communicated. "Good job," he called out. "Remember to talk to each other. Communication is key in a real emergency." At the next station, the students faced a different scenario. A loud alarm blared, and they had to respond to a mock explosion. Smoke machines filled the area with fog, creating an intense atmosphere. "Together," Zog shouted, "stay low. We need to get to the injured." The group quickly moved through the smoke, showing impressive teamwork as they assessed the situation. John felt a rush of excitement as he saw them in action. They were applying everything he had taught them, and it was working. As they moved to the next station, a voice called out from behind, "What's going on here?" John turned to see a group of alien instructors watching from the sidelines. They looked intrigued, and he smiled, feeling proud to showcase his students' skills. "This is our emergency drill," he explained. "The students are practicing their first aid techniques in various scenarios." The alien instructors exchanged glances, nodding in approval. They could see the students were not only learning but thriving under the pressure. As the drill continued, John noticed that Zog was growing more confident. At one station, they faced a scenario involving the heavy bleeding wound. Zog stepped forward, taking the lead. "Okay, everyone, remember what we practiced," he said, directing the team. They quickly applied pressure and elevated the injury, showcasing their skills effectively. John felt a sense of pride swell within him. "Excellent work, team. You're really coming together." After several rotations, the drill concluded, and John gathered everyone to debrief. The students looked exhausted but exhilarated. "You all did amazing," he announced, clapping his hands to get their attention. "I'm proud of how you worked as a team. You handled each situation with skill and confidence." Zog grinned, breathing heavily. "That was intense, but I felt ready." Yip nodded, still catching his breath. "Yeah, I can't believe how much we've improved." John smiled, knowing that they were starting to believe in themselves. "This is just the beginning. You've learned valuable skills that can save lives, and with more practice, you'll only get better." The students began to chat excitedly, discussing their favorite parts of the drill. John listened, feeling the sense of satisfaction. They had transformed from hesitant learners into confident first responders. As the day came to an end, John gathered them for one last thought. "Always remember, learning first aid is about more than just the techniques. It's about caring for others and stepping up when it matters. You all have the potential to make a real difference." The students nodded, inspired by his words. They understood now that they were part of something bigger, an opportunity to help not just themselves, but others in need. As they left the training area, John felt a sense of fulfillment. His mission was clear: to empower these students with knowledge and courage. And today, he saw that spark in their eyes. They were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. To unexpected challenges. The next week, excitement filled the air as the alien students returned for another class. Word had spread about their impressive drill, and now they were eager to learn more. John welcomed them with a smile, but he also felt a sense of responsibility. He knew that the knowledge they were gaining could be life-saving. Today, he announced, we're going to talk about unexpected challenges in first aid. Emergencies can be unpredictable, and you need to think on your feet. The students nodded, their faces serious. John could see they understood the importance of the topic. We'll start with a scenario, he continued. Imagine you're in a crowded area, and someone collapses. What do you do? Yip raised a hand. Call for help. Good, John replied. But remember, you also need to assess the situation quickly. Who can help? What resources are available? Zog chimed in. We should check if the person is breathing first. Exactly. You need to act fast and use your knowledge effectively, John encouraged. Let's practice this in a role-playing exercise. The students quickly formed small groups. Each group had to create their own emergency scenario, which the others would act out. John provided props to make it more realistic, including dummies and first aid kits. As the groups prepared, John observed them closely. He was impressed by how they discussed their ideas, demonstrating teamwork and creativity. Zog and Yip worked together, brainstorming a scenario where an alien suffered a serious injury during a festival. Let's make it chaotic, Zog suggested, his eyes sparkling with excitement. We can pretend there's a lot of noise and people moving around. Yip nodded, adding, and we can simulate the crowd panicking. Once all the groups were ready, they presented their scenarios one by one. The first group acted out a situation where someone fell from a height during a construction project. The students shouted instructions to one another, demonstrating their quick thinking. Check for spinal injury, Zog called out as they assessed the dummy. The class clapped in appreciation. The next group's scenario involved an alien fainting at a crowded market. Yip took charge, directing her classmates as they navigated the imaginary crowd. They shouted commands and communicated effectively, showcasing their skills. Finally, it was Zog and Yip's turn. They created a loud and chaotic scene, complete with sound effects and props. The class watched intently as Zog pretended to be an injured alien, while Yip took the lead as the first responder. Stay calm. We need to check for breathing, Yip shouted, her voice rising above the noise. Suddenly, they introduced an unexpected twist, a group of panic-stricken aliens rushing in, mimicking a real emergency situation. John smiled at their creativity. Watch out for the crowd, Zog yelled, trying to keep his focus while the chaos ensued. The class burst into laughter as the students struggled to manage the mock emergency. But beneath the laughter, John could see they were also learning to adapt. This was a valuable lesson in handling unexpected challenges. As the exercises concluded, John gathered everyone together. Great job, everyone. You've shown impressive teamwork and creativity. Remember, in real emergencies, things can get messy, and you need to stay focused. Zog raised his hand. What if we panic too? John nodded, appreciating the question. That's a real concern. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, but practicing these scenarios will help you react more calmly. In a real situation, taking a deep breath and focusing on your training can make all the difference. The students nodded, their expressions serious as they absorbed his words. Now let's talk about how to handle your own emotions in an emergency, John said. You might feel scared or unsure, but it's essential to keep your head clear. That's why practicing together is so important. As they continued their discussion, John encouraged the students to share their feelings and concerns. The atmosphere turned supportive, and they realized they weren't alone in their fears. Zog raised his hand again. I felt nervous during the drill, but I also felt ready. I think it's okay to feel scared. Absolutely, John replied. Feeling nervous shows you care. It's a natural response. The key is to use that energy positively. Transform your fear into determination. The class ended with a sense of camaraderie among the students. They had bonded over their shared experiences and learned that vulnerability was part of the process. As they left the classroom, John felt hopeful. These students were not just learning skills. They were developing resilience. They understood that emergencies could be chaotic and unpredictable, but they were also ready to face those challenges head-on. John smiled, knowing that the lessons they learned today would serve them well in the future. They were on a path to becoming not just first responders, but confident individuals who could handle whatever came their way. The test of skills. The next class came quickly, and the air was thick with anticipation. John had prepared a special surprise for his alien students. It was time for a skills assessment, a chance for them to show what they had learned. As they entered the classroom, he could see the mix of excitement and nervousness on their faces. "Welcome back, everyone," John said cheerfully. "Today, we're going to test your first aid skills in a real-life simulation." The students gasped, their eyes widening in surprise. "A simulation?" Zog echoed, glancing at his classmates. "What does that mean?" "It means we're going to create a realistic emergency scenario," John explained. "You will work together in teams to assess the situation and provide first aid. You'll have to think quickly and use everything you've learned so far." The class buzzed with chatter as they discussed the upcoming challenge. John could sense their excitement building, and he felt proud of how far they had come. They were ready to put their skills to the test. "Let's split into groups," he instructed, organizing the students based on their previous performances. "Remember to communicate effectively and stay calm. I'll be watching, and I might throw in some surprises to make things more challenging." With their groups formed, John led them to a large, open space set up like a mock emergency scene. There were props scattered around, including dummies, first aid kits, and even some sound effects to simulate chaos. "All right, everyone," John called. "You have 5 minutes to assess the scene and come up with a plan. Go." The students rushed into action. Zog and Yip quickly assessed the area, shouting commands to their teammates. "Check for injuries," Zog directed, pointing to a dummy lying on the ground. Yip glanced around, noticing another group struggling. "We should help them," she suggested, her voice filled with urgency. They rushed to assist, demonstrating teamwork and collaboration. Meanwhile, John observed closely, ready to intervene if needed. He watched as the students communicated and divided responsibilities among themselves. Each group had its own unique approach, and he was impressed by their creativity. As the simulation progressed, John decided to add some unexpected challenges. He activated sound effects of a loud crowd and emergency sirens to create a sense of urgency. The students faltered for a moment, taken aback by the sudden chaos. But then they regrouped, rallying together. "Stay focused," Zog shouted. "We can do this." Yip encouraged her teammates. "Remember what John taught us. Let's check for breathing first." They returned to their roles, demonstrating the skills they had practiced. As the simulation continued, John noticed some students struggling with nerves. He approached one group that seemed overwhelmed. "Take a deep breath," he said softly. "Remember, you've trained for this. Use that training to guide you." With renewed determination, the students focused on their tasks. They assessed injuries, performed mock CPR, and called for help. The atmosphere was electric with energy and teamwork. When the 5 minutes were up, John gathered everyone together. "Great job, everyone. I saw excellent teamwork and communication. Now let's discuss what went well and what could be improved." The students were eager to share their experiences. "I learned to stay calm even when things got loud," Zog admitted, his eyes bright. "It helped me think more clearly." Yip added, "We need to practice more unexpected challenges. It was hard, but it made us better." John nodded in agreement. Absolutely. Real emergencies can be chaotic, so the more you practice under pressure, the better you'll be prepared. As they discussed their experiences, John felt a sense of pride in their growth. These students had embraced challenges, and their confidence was evident. They had learned to trust one another, and it showed in how they worked together. Now, John said, a smile spreading across his face, let's take this a step further. Next week, I want each group to come up with their own emergency scenario and lead a simulation for the rest of the class. The students cheered at the idea, their enthusiasm infectious. This will be fun, Zog exclaimed, clapping his hands together. Absolutely, John agreed. You'll get to be both the instructors and the responders. This will be a fantastic opportunity to showcase everything you've learned. As the class came to an end, John felt hopeful. His alien students were becoming not just skilled first responders, but also confident leaders. They were ready to take on the challenges ahead, and he couldn't wait to see what they would create for their upcoming simulations. As they left the classroom, John smiled at the thought of the growth he had witnessed in these students. They were not just learning first aid. They were building friendships and gaining the confidence to face the unknown. He knew they would be ready for anything, and he was proud to be their teacher. The final challenge. The day of the final challenge arrived, and excitement buzzed in the air as John prepared his alien students for the last test of their first aid skills. Each group had spent the past week designing their own emergency scenarios, and John was eager to see their creativity and knowledge in action. As the students entered the classroom, the atmosphere was electric. Colorful banners decorated the walls, and each group had brought props to enhance their simulations. John couldn't help but smile at their enthusiasm. "Welcome, everyone," he said, clapping his hands together to gather attention. "Today is a big day. You will each lead a simulation, and I want you to showcase everything you've learned. Remember to communicate clearly and work together. Let's make this an unforgettable experience." Zog stepped forward confidently, adjusting his alien glasses. "We're ready, John. Our group will go first." "Fantastic, Zog," John replied, feeling proud of his students. "Let's get started." The first group set up their scene, a chaotic mock emergency where multiple dummies lay scattered as if they had been in an accident. The group quickly organized themselves, assigning roles based on each member's strengths. John stood back, observing their teamwork as they began the simulation. "Okay, everyone, check for injuries," Zog shouted, directing his teammates. Yip quickly rushed to assess a dummy, checking for responsiveness. The group worked smoothly, communicating efficiently, and it was clear that they had learned how to adapt under pressure. As the simulation progressed, John noticed how each student applied the skills they had practiced. They remembered to check for breathing, perform CPR, and even called for help using the alien communication devices they had created. When the simulation ended, John applauded them. "Great job, everyone. You worked seamlessly as a team. Now let's discuss what went well and what could be improved." The students eagerly shared their thoughts. Zog spoke up. "I felt more confident this time. It was fun to lead and see everyone working together." Yip nodded in agreement. "We also learned that we needed to manage our time better. We rushed a bit in the beginning." John smiled, impressed by their reflections. "Excellent insights. Time management is key in real emergencies. You did fantastic overall." Next, it was the second group's turn. They created a scenario involving a simulated natural disaster, with props representing debris and injured victims. Their setup was intricate, with sound effects of a storm playing in the background. As they began their simulation, John saw their creativity shine. They acted swiftly, using teamwork to assess the situation and prioritize injuries. Each member took on a specific role, showcasing their knowledge while adapting to the chaos they had created. "Check for head injuries," one student yelled as they crouched by a dummy. Another group member assisted, demonstrating bandaging techniques they had practiced. John noted how they handled the storm sound effects, keeping calm amid the simulated chaos. Once again, John applauded after the simulation. "Wonderful job. Your creativity really made the scenario come to life. Let's discuss your performance." The students eagerly shared their experiences. "We realized how important it was to communicate clearly," one of them noted. "We almost missed a critical injury because we were too focused on the noise." After each group completed their simulations, John felt a wave of pride. They had transformed from uncertain learners into confident responders, showcasing not only their skills, but also their ability to work as a cohesive unit. "Now let's wrap up our final challenge with a surprise," John announced, grinning. "I have arranged for a guest speaker, a seasoned paramedic from Earth. She will share her experiences and insights about real-life emergencies." The students buzzed with excitement at the news. They quickly gathered their props and tidied the classroom as they waited for the guest speaker to arrive. John could see their eagerness to learn from someone who had experienced emergencies firsthand. When the paramedic arrived, she greeted the class with a warm smile. "Hello, everyone. I've heard great things about your skills. I'm excited to be here and share some stories with you." The students listened intently as she recounted her experiences in various emergency situations. She discussed the importance of staying calm, thinking critically, and how teamwork can save lives. The students were captivated, asking questions and engaging with her throughout her talk. After the session, John felt a sense of fulfillment. He knew the students had not only learned first aid skills, but also built friendships that would last a lifetime. They had grown so much during the course, and it was clear that their time together had made a lasting impact. As the class concluded, John gathered the students for a final discussion. "I'm so proud of each of you. You've worked hard and demonstrated incredible growth. Always remember, the skills you've learned here can help save lives, whether on Earth or anywhere in the galaxy." The students cheered, their faces filled with pride. They had accomplished so much together, and John knew they were ready to face any challenges that lay ahead. As they left the classroom, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing he had played a part in their journey toward becoming skilled first responders.